Previously on Legacy Coderetreat Codecasts, we had a feature request that said we need to write a text output as well as a console output. So we extracted all the system out print line to a method called console write line. And for that method, what we have done is to extract it to a new class called console output. Then in order to extract this method to the console output class, we need to make it static. So we made it static like this with automated refactoring. And after that, we really moved it to the console output class. By that, in fact, we succeeded to create a new implementation called text output. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Legacy Coderetreat Codecasts. Today we will talk about dependency inversion. I wrote about this topic in this blog post, and you can read it here and see my opinion about this concept. But today we will do something very similar, but on code base. From the previous episodes, we ended here by having a game class with a game output passed through a setter. So this is already a kind of dependency injection. But I'm not happy with this because sometimes I have console output here, which is the default one, and I can override it with the setter if I want to, with another type of game output. I have some other types of game output, like a text output, and this would write game output but to a text file, not to a console. But in order to do that type of dependency inversion in a real good way, what I really want to have is to be able to, for example, have a game runner to decide which kind of output they want to use. I can do that now with the setter if I do something like this, and this is perfectly fine, but yet the dependencies are not very visible. They are hidden. So I want to get rid of this instantiation, and I want to move it to the client of this code, meaning for me, once the game runner, and secondly the tests that use this instantiation. And I will have some tests that will need to use the console, but also I have other tests that will need to run with text output, like this one. So I will want to separate these two into two separate test files, one for text and one for console. But in order to do that, I want to be able to do the dependency injection very visible. So let's do this. How can I really use well this dependency inversion through constructor without destroying everything? So first of all, what I want to do is to run the tests on the game, it was the production. So let's really run the tests. I have two types of tests. They are all green now. I want to have a game that would have this but for that I want to create a new constructor. So I will want to pass the game output, and we want to instantiate it like that. Of course, this constructor will need to do the job of the previous constructor as well. So I need to do something like this to call the other constructor as well. This is one way of dealing with this, and I want to try to see how this will work first of all with the tests. So instead of calling the game, I want to instantiate the game by passing the console output like that. And let's see if this works. Yes, it means the same thing as before. So now this is clearly not a game anymore. I would need to rename this. Now this is a game with console output. And because I'm doing this, it doesn't make any sense here in the bottom where I have the test with the text output to call it game with console output. So I want to separate this thing into two, but first let's commit. Changed the tests to call the constructor having passed the type of output. Okay, that means that for this one I need to create another instance. So what I will do is to create a private game with text output, and I will create this game giving it the text output, and this needs a file name as well. Let me see what the file name I gave here. It's called system tests. So I should have this as well as a private string. I need to rename this because I have a typo. And now if I go down, I should change this one with game with text output. I shouldn't need this anymore, and I should use this here. So let's see. Everything works. Also, I could delete this because I don't need it anymore. And the tests are green. And now if it works for the test, it should work very well for the production code as well. But let's commit first. Created an instance for tests for game with the text output in the tests. Now what this is doing in fact is deleting the text file. I'll delete it because it's only one test that uses it and I don't mind, but now it's clear that I have two responsibilities in this test. I have one for testing with the game with console and one with the text output, so I will need to split that. But now I want to see how the game will work if instead of calling this game constructor simple constructor, I will change all the clients to call directly the constructor that can receive the type of output like console output. So if I do something like this, it compiles. Let's run it. So everything is fine. At this moment, what I can do is make this constructor private. The code still works in production, and let's run the tests. Everything still works. Because I have done this now, I don't need the set game output anymore. But that's a too bigger step. Let's commit first. Changed the game runner to call the constructor with the game output. So now I can do a bit of cleanup. This isn't needed anymore, and I have this constructor here that is called. So I have real good dependency inversion now implemented, and the client decides on which type of output to choose. So now it is very easy for me to have this game runner, and I could pass it any type of output, for example a text output or anything like that. So let's do another commit. Deleted, unused, setup output from game. So the reason why I have done this is because I want to have dependencies that are very clear, and we use the different types of levels of abstractions. The game is an abstraction that is at a higher level than console. The console was everywhere in the game here, but now I don't use it anymore. I just use this generic game output, which is in fact just a abstraction of the concept of output, and I can implement it in any way I want. And in this way the code becomes more usable, easier to extend, and this is one thing we need to do when dealing with legacy code. We need to create abstractions and put them at their normal level. We need to inject these abstractions whenever needed. My favorite form of injecting abstractions is usually by constructor, because they're visible, they are clear, and we don't hide them. But it depends from case to case, of course. that's my favorite way of using dependency inversion. But of course, it shouldn't be the only way. This is why we have options. In this case, it was very easy to have this constructor after we had made all the extractions of console, and it's now extremely easy to detach the system from this external thing, which is the console. In the next episode, we will discuss about how to change these tests to get rid of all this console output and to really use mocks, to use a mocking framework to help us get rid of all these calls to the console. So stay tuned and thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, have fun coding.